The morning I noticed my CEO wearing my shirt was the same morning everything in my life began to shift. It was one of those still, almost eerie mornings that felt a little too peaceful. Sunlight filtered through the half-closed blinds of my tiny apartment, casting soft golden stripes across the floor. My head was pounding like someone had stuck a drum inside it and started playing. I slowly pushed myself upright, pressing my fingers against my temples, trying to piece together how the night before had ended. The air in my apartment carried a faint mix of coffee and rain, and for a moment, I assumed I was alone. Then I saw her. She stood by my small kitchen counter, calmly pouring coffee into 2 mugs like she had done 100 times before. Out of everyone I could have imagined standing there, she was the last person I expected, my CEO, and she was wearing my shirt. Not just any shirt, either. It was my favorite navy blue one, the one I wore when I needed a boost of confidence. It hung loosely on her, the sleeves slightly rolled, the collar resting gently around her neck. I just stared, my brain struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. Finally, the only question I could manage slipped out. "Why are you wearing my shirt?" She turned toward me slowly, completely at ease. Her dark hair fell over one shoulder, and a small, knowing smile appeared on her lips as she met my eyes. Then she said something that made my heart skip. "Don't you remember last night?" Before we go any further, take a second to support the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and how unexpected moments can change everything, go ahead and like this video, drop a comment, share it with someone who could use a little hope today, and subscribe for more emotional stories like this. Your support helps these stories reach people who truly need them. Now, let me tell you how that strange morning came to be, and how it completely changed the way I saw life, success, and the quiet strength of simply being a good person. My name is Daniel Carter, and until that morning, I was just another unnoticed employee in a huge corporate office. I worked as a junior data analyst at one of the biggest tech consulting firms in the city. The kind of place where thousands of people move through glass hallways every day like parts in a massive machine. I wasn't important. I wasn't exceptional. I was just someone who worked hard, kept quiet, and hoped things would eventually get better. My routine rarely changed. I woke up before sunrise in a cramped apartment that barely had room for my bed, a desk, and a second-hand couch. Each morning, I squeezed into the same crowded subway, passed the same little bakery on the corner, and walked into the same towering glass building that seemed to disappear into the clouds. At the very top of that building worked the woman everyone talked about, but almost no one truly knew. Our CEO. Her name was Olivia Grant. To most people, she felt almost unreal. The brilliant mind who had taken a struggling startup and turned it into a billion-dollar company. The youngest CEO the firm had ever had. The woman who could walk into a room full of powerful investors and walk out with every single one on her side. People respected her. People feared her. And unless absolutely necessary, people kept their distance. I had only seen her a handful of times in real life, usually during company-wide meetings. She would stand on stage, completely composed, speaking with quiet confidence while hundreds of employees listened. She always looked flawless, always in control, like she belonged to a completely different world than someone like me. Which is why waking up and seeing her in my apartment, wearing my shirt, felt completely unreal. The truth is, the night before it started like any normal evening. It was raining. Not the calm, peaceful kind, but the cold, steady kind that made everything feel heavy and gray. I had stayed late at the office finishing a report my manager had dropped on my desk just 15 minutes before leaving for the day. By the time I finally walked out of the building, most of the lights were already off and the streets were nearly empty. I remember pulling my jacket tighter as I headed toward the subway, trying not to think about the rain soaking through my shoes. That's when I saw something unusual. A black luxury car was parked near the building's entrance, and standing beside it, alone in the rain, was Olivia Grant. At first, I thought I had to be mistaken. CEOs don't just stand outside in the rain by themselves. They have drivers, assistants, security. But there she was, no umbrella, no one around, just staring down at the wet pavement as the rain slowly soaked her hair and coat. I hesitated. People like me don't walk up to people like her. That's just how things work. But something about the way she stood there didn't feel right. She didn't look powerful or in control. She looked tired, so I did something I normally never would. I walked over to her. I offered my umbrella without saying much, fully expecting her to politely decline. Instead, she looked up at me, and for the first time I saw something different in her eyes. Not the confidence everyone else saw, but something more real. And she accepted. That was the moment I knew something unusual was happening. We ended up walking together toward the subway, sharing the umbrella in an awkward silence. I kept expecting a driver to pull up or someone to come rushing over, but no one did. After a while, she asked for my name. Daniel. She nodded and said she recognized me from the analytics department. That caught me off guard. I always assumed someone at her level wouldn't even notice employees like me. But she had. As we walked, the rain got worse, and the wind kept pushing the umbrella sideways. By the time we reached the subway entrance, we were both half soaked. I laughed a little and made a comment about how the city always had the worst timing when it came to weather. And for the first time that night, she laughed too. Not the polite, practiced laugh you hear in meetings, but a real one. In that moment, something shifted. The invisible line between CEO and employee started to fade. Instead of heading straight home, we ended up sitting in a small 24-hour cafe across the street, waiting for the rain to ease up. And in that quiet little place, I learned something no one else at the company seemed to understand. Being the most powerful person in a building full of thousands can also make you the most alone. She didn't talk about money or success. She didn't brag about her position. Instead, she spoke about the pressure, the expectations, and how exhausting it was to always appear perfect. The world saw her as strong and untouchable. But sitting across from her in that quiet cafe, I saw something completely different. I saw someone who was simply tired of carrying everything by herself. At some point, our conversation shifted into lighter territory. Stories from childhood, awkward memories we used to hide, and even the strange dreams we once had about the future. Time slipped by without either of us realizing it. The rain kept pouring, and before we knew it, the subway system shut down for the night because of flooding. That's when things got complicated. Her driver couldn't get anywhere near us since several streets were blocked. The only option close by was my apartment. It wasn't some big decision. It just made sense at the time. Or at least, that's what we told ourselves. By the time we got there, she was completely drenched. I handed her a dry towel and the first clean thing I could grab from my closet, my navy blue shirt. After that, everything gets a little hazy. Not because anything inappropriate happened, but because something far more unexpected did. Two people from completely different worlds spent the entire night talking. About regrets, about dreams, about the strange ways life brings people together when they least expect it. Somewhere between midnight and sunrise, we both gave in to exhaustion. And somehow, I forgot everything that happened in those last few hours. Which brings us back to that strange morning. My CEO, standing in my kitchen, wearing my shirt, holding 2 cups of coffee, looking at me with that same quiet, mysterious smile. She walked toward me and handed me one of the mugs. Steam rose between us as I struggled to remember anything from the end of the night. My mind was completely blank, and she could tell. Instead of explaining right away, she sat down across from me and studied my face like she was deciding whether or not to share something important. Finally, she spoke, but not with authority, not like a CEO. It sounded more like someone holding on to a meaningful memory. She told me that around 3 o'clock in the morning, after hours of talking, I had fallen asleep on the couch mid-sentence while explaining why I never went after promotions at work. Apparently, I had said something she couldn't forget. I told her that success didn't matter if you had to step on people to get there, and that the world already had enough powerful people, but not enough kind ones. I didn't remember saying any of that, but she remembered every word. And for reasons she couldn't fully explain, it stayed with her. That morning, sitting in my small apartment, she looked at me differently than she ever had before. Not like an employee, not like someone beneath her, but like someone who had unknowingly reminded her of something she had almost lost. Why she started the company in the first place. Not for power, not for money, but to build something meaningful, something human. Later that morning, the rain finally stopped and reality slowly came back. She changed in her own clothes, thanked me quietly, and got ready to leave. Right before she walked out, she turned back and said something simple, but it felt important. "See you at work, Daniel." But this time, her smile felt different, like it carried a promise. The next few weeks were confusing. At the office, everything looked the same. She was still the confident CEO everyone respected. Meetings went on. Deadlines didn't stop. The company kept running like always. But every now and then, I noticed something small. A quick glance during a meeting. A subtle nod in the hallway. A brief moment where our eyes met. And she looked at me like we shared something no one else knew. And slowly, things inside the company began to change. Teams started working together more. Managers were encouraged to treat employees with more respect. Ideas from junior staff, people like me, were suddenly being heard. At first, no one understood why, but I had a quiet feeling I did. Sometimes one conversation, one rainy night, one simple reminder about kindness can change the direction of everything. Months later, Olivia introduced a new initiative that caught everyone off guard. Instead of focusing only on profit, the company began putting real effort into employee well-being, community projects, and mentorship programs. People started saying she had changed, that she had become a different kind of leader, more understanding, more human. What no one knew was that the shift had started in a small apartment, during a rainstorm, with a borrowed shirt and a conversation neither of us planned. But the story doesn't end there, because life has a funny way of bringing people back together when there's a reason for it. Over time, our conversations didn't stop. At first, there were short talks after meetings, then coffee breaks, then longer discussions about ideas, goals, and where the company was heading. The distance between CEO and employee slowly faded, not in a reckless or inappropriate way, but in a quiet, respectful way. Two people learning to understand each other beyond titles. She pushed me to think bigger. I reminded her to stay grounded. And somewhere along the way, we found something rare in a corporate world: trust. Years later, when people asked Olivia Grant what changed her as a leader, she gave an unexpected answer. She said it all started the night she borrowed an employee's shirt during a rainstorm. Most people laughed when they heard that, but the ones who really understood knew there was something deeper behind it. Kindness changes people, and sometimes the smallest, most unexpected moments are the ones that shape our future. Before I wrap up this story, I want to ask you something. If this story made you feel anything, if it reminded you that kindness, humility, and real human connections still matter, take a second to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. Your support helps these stories reach people who might be struggling in silence. And before we end, I have one simple request. Down in the comments, type the word kindness. Just that one word. Because sometimes the smallest word holds the greatest meaning. Now, let me share the final part of the story. 5 years later, the company had grown beyond anything anyone expected. New offices, bigger projects, thousands of employees. One evening, during a company celebration, Olivia stood on stage giving a speech about how far everything had come. Halfway through, she surprised everyone by saying my name. I walked up onto the stage, completely confused, as hundreds of employees watched. She smiled, that same mysterious smile from years ago. Then she told the entire company the story. The rainy night, the umbrella, the cafe, the borrowed shirt, and the reminder that leadership isn't about power, it's about people. She didn't talk about titles. She didn't mention promotions. Instead, she said something that stayed with everyone in that room. Great companies aren't built by brilliant CEOs. They're built by good people who choose kindness, even when no one is watching. In that moment, something clicked for me. The biggest changes in life don't always come from huge plans. Sometimes they start with something simple. A rainy night, a shared umbrella, a borrowed shirt, and two people remembering that kindness still matters. And if this story meant even a little to you, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters. Because somewhere out there, someone might need this reminder today that even the smallest act of kindness can change everything.